Hi Craig, I just wanted to talk about what I noticed in your swing. When you swing the club back, you've got some movement with your hands on the club. This is actually a really common thing and it's not often suspected by a player. When it's pointed out to them, they're usually quite surprised. Now, let me just explain what I mean by that. When I set myself up, my hands are on the club, if I move my hand, the club should move exactly the same as what my hand moves. And during the swing, if there's any movement of my hand, then that should be reflected in the club face and in club head. What I noticed in your swing, and again this is fairly common, is that relationship changes. Now in your swing, you're starting the club back. When you get to about this point here, your left hand is turned more on the club face or open more on the club face than what the club face has opened. So if I start the club back, very little movement in my hands, my club face is open a little bit, but my hand hasn't actually moved on the grip, and that's what we can see in your swing. So what do you need to do about it? First of all, make sure that the club's sitting correctly in your left hand. So if my hand's open here, and the back of my hand's facing the target, then the club should run from the crease in my palm here, just above the base of my little finger, through to about the first bone in my forefinger. So it's going to run diagonally across like that, so that when my hand is closed, the fleshy part of my left hand here is sitting on top of the grip. The next part is it's an awareness exercise. When you begin to swing the club back, if you start the swing tightening your left hand, left arm, left shoulder, there's a greater likelihood that the club is actually going to twist in your hand. So when you swing the club back, be very aware that there's no change in tension through your hand through the very first part of the backswing. Because usually if you get past that point, you've got the backswing movement nailed without having to move your hand. So that's the first part. There's that awareness of swinging the club back without using your hands to begin with. The last thing you want to do is to tighten your hands in order to prevent them moving on the grip, because they're actually more likely to move. It'll be tension in your hands that's actually creating that change. Now the second thing that I noticed which actually is an extension of what I've just mentioned, is that when the club gets back to the top of the swing, your left wrist here is bent a lot. Now what we can see at the top of the swing is the club face, your club face, is quite square. So by square I mean the bottom edge of the club appears to be at about a 45-degree angle to the ground. Of course that would be open and that would be closed. But your hand position doesn't relate to that. So again, we've got that movement. So here's the thing, when you get to the top of the swing, feel like the back of your hand and your forearm is relatively flat like that. I don't mind a little bit of a bend, that's fine, but just not too much. The other thing that goes with that is that it tends to create excessive movement in your wrists. And so it sort of makes the club look like it can swing back too far as well. So if you reduce the amount of movement in your hands at the start of the takeaway, when you get to the top of the swing, have a look and make sure that this wrist here is still quite flat. Now I suspect when you do that, you'll feel like you're not hinging your wrists, you're not using your wrist very much in the backswing, and that will be fine. When the club swings down and through, it will respond to the movement of your backswing and you'll find that everything will improve. Give that a go and see how it works for you.